Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I do not know how to start with after such two powerful packed sessions. In the first panel discussion, I think we heard about the industry as a whole, and in the second session with Captain Raghu, we also understood the nuances of what the macro level is understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, last half a year or so, in fact, for all of us, has been a very tough time, especially for the security functions. But I'm saying, and I would say that you all would agree that it has and respect back. It has got an importance to the security function back in the organization. CSOs are now playing the role of chief advisor to the management and doing much beyond security and much more than what they were doing before the pre-COVID era. But it has only happened due to untiring efforts, courage, in-time action, and quick reactions of the security leaders, managers, and in fact the entire team. Today, I'm delighted to be amongst the panel of experienced professionals from diversified field of security. Let us hear them share their experiences, best practices that they have executed, and what are some success stories that they have to tell us. Let me welcome Major Rohit Sharma, who is the AVP Security and ROW with Sterlite. A professional with vast experience in the field of security and risk management and experience in business continuity, crisis management, risk assessment, emergency preparedness, security audit, and executive protection. Rohit, you are from the power transmission sector and you were declared an essential service during the lockdown. Please let us know, how did you manage it? What role security ensuring business continuity during these times of COVID-19, and how security became the center point of all operations? We are all eager to hear some case studies from you, Rohit.
Good evening, everyone. Rajiv, am I audible?
Yes.
Great. I think last 6 months were very difficult for all of us, and going back, and if I think about it, I think it got a lot of opportunities also, in lot of sectors, kind of to go and understand or be a part of the business. And I think security was no different this time around. So if I talk about the power transmission sector, during the first lockdown itself, the MHA guidelines were very clear. The power sector was declared as the essential service, be it transmission, distribution, or generation for that matter. But from the time the orders are given to what is executed on ground, there was a lot of gap. The district administration was not ready to take any chances or accept this MHA guideline as the gospel truth and allow us to work. And this is where security came in, because security was also essential service. If you remember, security was also placed as essential service, and this is where security came in, wherein nobody could move to any place. The security on ground could move to places. It could go to the district administration, it could go to the police to seek various approvals that one need to seek. And I keep telling everybody this thing, that right from picking up a water motor from a shop which is shut to getting passes from the MHA, I think security has done everything during these 6 months. I mean, and who would have thought you can airlift a strength of 185 laborers to be brought from one district or one state to a different state altogether, for us to continue our work. And this is where security came in. I got a input from my business saying that we need to get some laborers from a state to a different state altogether, and they were not getting any way ahead on this thing. And this is where security came in. We spoke to the people, we spoke to the airlines people, got everything coordinated, had that aircraft placed in the runway, and made that takeoff happen. So this is where I'm saying the security came in from a business continuity perspective, because everywhere the labor was going, but in the transmission sector, we were actually short of labor and we were getting it from somewhere outside. So this is what has happened. I'm saying that security has really kind of come a long way, to get this done. I mean, we have taken employees, we've taken engineers from their guest rooms or their residing areas to the place of work, in the security vehicles. We have delivered laptops to the employees, who were there in the house and who had no access to this thing. So security has done it all, in the past 6 odd months, and I think the business has realized it, that we are not looking at a couple of guards and a few cameras now. Security now is a very, very important and integral part of the overall business. So that is what has happened, in our sector.
Rohit, thank you so much. We heard you saying that there were a lot of gaps between the guidelines and the actual situation on ground, and doing the most of the layers of work, and also you did a lot of logistics, whether it is a human resource from one to the other. And I also heard you saying that laptops were, you had to deliver it at their homes and at the working site. So much beyond what security was supposed to do earlier. Thank you very much for your opening comments. Let me invite Ms. Rekha Gairola, Regional Security Advisor, India and South Asia for Boeing. Rekha is a REIT certified investigator as well as certified in peace technique, which is in contrast with REIT, certified crime prevention specialist, certified CAS instructor, and the AS 9100G internal auditor, which is for aerospace and defense. Rekha, you heard Rohit making comments from the power transmission. You also are into a manufacturing kind of a space. How the phased approach, you think, that minimized the risk and role of the security? Also share some of the best practices during COVID-19, including the changes in the role and responsibilities of security as an organization or as a function. Rekha.
Yeah, thanks, Rajiv. Am I audible enough? Okay, great. So, Rajiv, thank you for the question. The risk and the phased approach to mitigate or minimize the risk, and the role of security ever since this COVID-19 thing has happened, I think this is kind of interlinked. So what I'll do is I would like to answer your second part of the question first, and by the end of it, I think I'll be able to provide you provide more clarity on how a risk-based approach or a phased approach can actually mitigate the risk. So when we talk about the new phase of security and how this COVID-19 thing has changed security, I mean, if I kind of say something, I'm sure the audience and all the panelists they already know about this new paradigm shift that has happened in our security realm or in security department or function, so to say. Security was always been and had remained, the most integral part of, any of the crisis management teams or incident management teams. It was not that, security was not taken into consideration, or let's say for the, BCP thing. But what this pandemic has done is that it has actually challenged our thinking and the way we used to conduct those scenario tests when we used to conduct BCPs. So we already had some sort of incident in the past to quote and to refer to, and then plan our business accordingly. This thing, now that management was not aware of, and management was clueless, and it was not just limited to one particular region or a continent, it was kind of a global pandemic. So there was no best practices at that point in time to look up to and then start mirroring it. So it was like people were kind of trying to first understand what is the problem. So that problem definition itself was not so very clear. And that's where they said, okay, fine, security definitely is part of a crisis management team, but here it is not just about security, but about life safety. So let them lead. This is what has happened. Initially, it was part of security was integral part, but this time, what has happened is that security started leading it. It was security who was first approached, ever since this first lockdown was declared by the government sometime in the March. Though it was just for, one day, it was kind of one of the Sundays, right? And the same Sunday, the very next Monday, the management, I'm sure, this happened with all other industry folks as well, that the management said that, okay, fine, we need to have a meeting, but hey, wait, where is security? We need to first understand what security thinks about it. And if at all they anticipate something. And at that point in time, I think it was very difficult for all of us all to really anticipate something because we were still trying to understand what it is, right? But now what is happening is, like I said, that BCP model has, I won't say failed, but I think that really requires a complete revamp, or the way we looked into that BCP, the business continuity. It's more about life continuity right now. So it's not just business, but also the life, right? The other thing, and how security started taking over is that we all are already into risk management. We carry out risk assessment. So I think that is, I'm not biased, but I think that's kind of inbuilt sort of thing in all of us all. And that sort of helped us to actually read through those guidelines. So there were some loopholes for sure. And that again, added to our advantage. I may be sounding really rude here, but that really played well for us as in security people, because management couldn't really understand. I mean, just imagine a CFO or a CEO who's very much into business. I mean, in our case, you have engineers, you have scientists, and then, there's this guideline, and you just can't make any sense out of that guideline because it says, okay, business essential, but where's the definition of business essential? There is a definition of business essential, but that's kind of real vague. And then, lockdown 1, and then lockdown 2, and then lockdown 3, and then we started with unlock phases. Now, everyone spoke about business essentials, right? So for us and for many of other industry, peer group members, I would say, it was really difficult to first define business essentials. And if, we really can put that business critical into business essential, we need to understand that these two are two different things. One is business critical. A business critical could be a business specific, but when we say business essential, that is a different definition altogether. And how to kind of, bring business essential and business critical together, and then again seek help from security, because then security can help you really, carve down a good definition for that. Unless and until security really understands business, it's not going to help. So, I'll just tell you, different sections where security was really, reached out for. The time when this thing has happened, there were a lot of international travelers who were in country, and then there were a lot of employees who were outside the country, and then all of a sudden, the flights, got suspended, and then we have people stranded here, and then we have people stranded outside our country, right? So there was this travel desk which security was running, right? And I'm sure they are still running, right? Now that unlock phase, and it's not just that. So when I say business critical, now for many of us, we understand that security is not just gun guards and gates. For most of us, we are also into information protection as well. So how to protect that information? The statement of work, how you can actually help the employees who really need to work from home, but at the same time not compromising with all the company regulations which says that you just cannot work from home or any remote location. So how to mitigate that risk? That was again important integral part of it. And then we have seen it's not just industry specific. We have seen how people have actually gone through this mental stress, to set up a sort of employee assistance program where you can tell employees that, hey, look, you can actually seek counseling from these people. They will ensure the confidentiality of it, because that confidentiality thing is really key to it. And at the same time, if you have a Boeing employee who, God forbid, but then if this employee gets infected, right, then how are you going to ensure that the person gets right kind of and right, a medical attention, and at the same time you are again not compromising with this health privacy of this particular individual. So all these verticals, I would say, were very and still are kind of tied very closely with security. And for all these things, the management have only one function and one person. And you rightly said that now it's kind of more of an advisor's job. Chief security advisors we have become, because unless we advise something, I don't think management is really to take any action. And when I say that phased approach, yes, because unless you really decide like business critical, and then let's say government says, and now it's kind of state specific. Few states have said that okay, fine, if you follow these SOPs, you really can actually go and do this and do that. But I think it's state guidelines. The statistics of that particular state is also one of the parameters to really decide whether you really need to open a particular office in a particular state or a city. And then if you are really carrying out any business critical work from that city, I think these are different parameters that basically decide whether or not you really need to look into that return to office approach, and at the same time without risking the life of any of your employee. And in the center of this is again security. So that's what I think. It's kind of, like I said, it's very interlinked, and I just hope that I answered your question, Rajiv. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rekha. It was brilliant, and we all heard you saying what was a little different from what you said, that the security came into the leadership role, and I think you perhaps just give the example of what Captain Raghuraman was saying in the previous session. That leadership came in the leadership role, and it has become an advisor to the management. You also give an example that you also worked as travel desk, not only for the logistics inside the country, but across the globe. And information security was also critical. We have my friend Colonel Indrajit Singh to talk about it later. Thank you so much, Rekha, for your opening comments. Can we go back to Jitendra, because before we go on to the next two speakers, I want, if Jitendra is available. Jitendra, are you? Can you hear us? Can we hear you? All right. Looks like there is a technical issue at the moment. So when we are talking about technology, I would like to invite Colonel Indrajit Singh. He is the Chief Cybersecurity Officer with Vara Technologies. An experience into the system professional with more than 27 plus years across a wide spectrum of areas, spanning into information security, risk management, cyber security, cyber forensics, cyber warfare, expertise in SOC and CRT, cloud computing, big data, IoT, including IoT security, blockchain, machine learning, and artificial intelligence. Colonel Indrajit Singh, we are all aware that IT has yet again defined its undoubted role in operations of business. Right. In fact, operations of life. The entire world is just dependent on IT for last few months. Internet, virtual meetings, etc., causing an enormous cyber threat. Please let us know. Of course, you may be able to answer what Rekha just mentioned. Please let us know what are the strategic and technical cyber security challenges faced by organizations during COVID-19, and what are the best practices for home users or work from home. And we are eager to hear you.
Yeah, sure enough. Thank you, Rajiv, and thank you. Wonderful evening, and thank you to be here today with all of panelists and gathering here. And while we are talking about the security, and IT, of course, is not devoid of when we talk about the physical security, and we are seeing the IT has taken the major role. What you actually, I'm resonating the same words. And of course, while we are working from home, it's IT that is the front end while we are doing all that. And when we moved out of the networks on, I think 22nd or 23rd of March, to be more precise, when we had with the lockdown, and we suddenly went in from the work from home environment. And we were all taken aback, as especially the IT specialists who were there in each and every enterprise, and in fact us also, because it was the most challenging part when we look at how do we ensure the business continuity of the company. How do we have the business running? Because it was not that the business was coming to a standstill, right? While we speak of physical perspective, the data perspective, your network perspective, how those people who are going to be given the connectivity. What Rohit also brought out, that they picked up laptops and gave it to the guys. That's the fact, because we never prepared for these kind of eventuality, and it was such a situation where earlier, it was like 95 or 5% people will work from home. Now the situation was that 100% people are going to work from home. That means you require the complete hardware, other than the servers, of course, the endpoints, to be there with the with your that. That was one challenge which was being faced, and which was always there in the papers and in your laptops, and in the boardroom. But then this was the first time you were trying to put it onto the actuals, and it was challenging. It was like how you go about it. No knee-jerk reaction, because it's a live business. What you're right. So business continuity point, from the IT perspective, from cyber perspective, was very important. Coming on to the cyber risk management, when we talk of the risks which are happening today, and we're all aware, while some of our co-panelists are there in the OT sector, which are the most vulnerable today, healthcare sector, which is the most vulnerable, and you all aware that you had the J&K power grid and it was down, right? You had there's only very recently there was a hack attack by APT, by the Russian APT guys on one of the COVID-19 research which happened. So you healthcare guys are the new IT sector. So that's where, how to manage those kind of risks. So that's where, the challenging part was, and that's how we actually try to resolve that risk management. And again, the risk management has to be put into the reality. Your disaster recovery plan. Hackers are very active today. You see high as compared to what it happened earlier. Ransomware you seldom used to hear earlier. Now it's happening day in and day out. So what's the disaster recovery plan? How do I really work when my networks are down? Right? How do I get back to my business continuity? So again, all these are iterative things, but then all these are very much linked to each other. Your incident response plan, because all of your users are now working out of your offices, they're in the houses, right? And your network is no more classic perimeter. That's the challenge of how to handle an incident response, because all your laptops are vulnerable to cyber attacks. I'll cover as to how they're vulnerable to cyber attacks. It's really a point to ponder. Then was that most of the companies today in India, especially, we don't have cyber. Think of having a cyber insurance, right? So cyber insurance against your business interruptions, cyber business interruptions against your ransomware attack. Last week, if you all know, that Garmin, which give the GPS services, was down, and they had to pay $10 million. Nobody knows whether they paid or not. They were supposed to pay to restore their services. And while we talk of the other sectors, fourth largest power company is power company, that's the renewable, was hacked. Okay, they had a phishing attack in the month of March, April somewhere, and that was 12th of April to be precise. And they told to pay 15.2 million euros for giving back the data. That was again a ransomware attack. So your plans have to be kind of disaster recovery. I'm giving the live examples because if your company has not been hacked till now, don't wait for it to be hacked, because you will definitely be hacked in some point in time. Okay, so it's either you're hacked or you're going to be hacked. it's both sides of the coin. Okay, and this cyber resilience, and we've been talking of the cyber resilience, and we're talking of the resilience from a company perspective. But yes, cyber resilience is very important for us. How do we come back to business as usual, business as normal? Because the world is moving at a very fast pace. The IT is moving at a fast pace. So, at a strategic level, at a board level, these were the kind of things which we had to really think, we had to work on it to put it right and the right perspective on ground. Then some of the technical points which I always bring out, and those are the ones which are required by the companies, by individuals, right? Like I told you that all our networks perimeters were gone because all of us were working from home. There's no firewall which is there now to protect you. There's no one who's tell you when to change your passwords. There's no one who's to tell you don't go onto these particular sites. There's no one who's going to tell you that don't use your official computer for your personal work. But that's what you're all doing now. So, but the challenge is the moment you're using your personal work or you're doing your personal work on the official laptop, you're compromising the data of the company. Because the moment you go onto the sites of, say, Google Chrome or something, it actually takes your password credentials off the sites, other sites you're visiting, it will take it away. So that is where the challenge starts. So the other one which we are going to face now, when we go back to our offices in some point in time, that's going to be a major discussion as to how you're going to go back to the office, because the company's data is no more as company's data. It's out in open. Okay, so at tactical level, all companies were supposed to have the VPNs, because we never thought of having a VPN at this scale, right? Changing the VPNs, upgrading the VPN, the capacity of VPN were very much required. And that's what we had to think of, right? To have a secure communication back to your network. Remote data access policy, right? Now, I cannot give all my data of my company to each and everyone, because though it was being decided in the company parameters, in my premises of the company, that these are the valid users who use the company data. But now, when all people really working out of the company, right? It's all porous. I don't know where you are. I don't know which part of the internet are you. Okay, and the remote data access policy is gone for a toss. Right? So that is where we have to work on it. Another aspect which is very important for all of us is your insecure Wi-Fi's, all Wi-Fi's. And believe you me, despite me or you also telling how many people do change their Wi-Fi passwords, and I will say very few. Right? So they're all, it's the hacker's paradise, and hackers are having really a wonderful time since COVID-19 came in. And if you look at the number of hack attacks, the ransomware, the malware, they've increased. Okay. Other part of it, some more, now most of the employees whom you couldn't give a laptop, how could on device, you're able to access from your own device. We'll give you some user ID passwords and you'll be able to access. Now he's going to be accessing the same data as any of the critical user who's going to be accessing the data. So how are we going to be ensuring that and protecting it? Right? Then is your encrypted password for emails. Now, all our emails which we are using most of the time, the moment you click it, most of the time, if there's no VPN, it's unencrypted, it's all gone, right? How do we ensure that there's no man in the middle attack? There's no credential stealing which is there. And then, like I brought out, that password policies or your cyber hygiene, because cyber hygiene is something which we have to be taught. We never gave the training or the capacity building on the cyber side to all our employees. It was like very couple of people, 10 to 12, you bring them onto the boardroom, train them, that's it. But did we train all the employees on the cyber hygiene? The answer is plain simple no. Right? So that's where the challenge today what we are trying to find, and we have to train the people. We're training them, but then it takes time because the IQ level, the level of the understanding is a bit problem. So those are the challenges at a strategic and at the tactical level, which I like to bring about. Then some of the best practices for the individuals, what you need to do. Okay, so what you can do as an individual, follow a multi-factor authentication or a two-factor authentication for everything what you're doing. Right, take a authentication from a point of view that you get a SMS or you get a OTP kind of thing, or you have a authenticated application. Okay, have a sufficient VPN capacity because most of our companies today don't have a VPN, right? So we have to have a VPN capacity to give a secure access to the company data. We are not bothered about the data backups. Especially, I'm telling the companies with the SMEs, they don't have a kind of infrastructure to handle, that data, or they don't have that kind of wherewithal to take the back at a very fast pace. So, data, having a DLP at your endpoints. Endpoints means your laptops. You should have a data leakage prevention kind of software which are there, so that while you're working from home, you don't end up losing. That's very important point of view. And
Thank you.
especially your SME, there's a right
I'm sorry to.
shift
I'm
self
sorry.
to cloud.
Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt with the. Sorry to interrupt you because of the interest of the time. But what we heard you saying was a very very interesting thing which I've heard for the first time is cyber insurance. And we'll try to come back to you on that if time permits. And second thing, you also talk about how many people change the password of the Wi-Fi. I don't know how many people change the password otherwise. And I, as a non-cyber, non-IT guy, I understand that the maximum people in the world use password as their password. I mean, that's been very basic. I don't know if the things are changing today or not.
That's what they do.
So. Moving on very, very quickly to Pushkar. Pushkar Gokhale is the Vice President and Head of B2B at Godrej and Boyce. Pushkar is coming here with 27 years of experience, has led large teams, and as his key roles in development, deployment in B2B, B2C and B2G environment, addressing diverse market segments and handling government relations. Pushkar, you are engaged in developing comprehensive security solutions in the pre-COVID era. Currently, you are formulating solutions to make workplace and establishments COVID compliant. So please share us that what is the holistic approach which you advise the corporates, the organizations to adopt, and to ensure don't leave out any gaps in the solution design. I would request Pushkar to be very precise. We are running short of time.
Sure. So, namaskar. I think let me start off with the best practice which one needs to follow during these times. I have a little presentation. I want to get a little bit academic in here. But before that, I just wanted to, ask the audience here only one simple question. When we talk about best practices, what is the objective of these practices? And when I look at these objectives, I think there are twofold objectives in today's time. One is the reality, and the second is the feeling. This is something which one needs to address. And when you talk about reality, I think it is about ensuring that each and every person entering the premises is safe and secure. That is the reality, and that is mandated by all government advisories as well. But the second important aspect, I think, is more about the feeling. Today, everybody in India or across the world is so much worried, is so much scared. And that's the reason I think every organization needs to ensure that every person every employee who's getting into the premises, every stakeholder who's aware of that, is getting that feeling that he's secure. I think we just heard Captain Saab also, he spoke about the mental health. I think it's all about ensuring peace of mind. So that's where I think the feeling comes in. And these two objectives, reality and feeling, can be addressed only with a holistic, comprehensive approach. I'll just quickly take you all through a small presentation and share with you what should be the approach to ensure how we can really, come up with this kind of solution. Okay. Just tell me when the presentation is up over there. Is this up there on screens?
No, have you shared the screen?
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not here. May I request you to continue like this till the time.
Yeah.
It
Is
comes
it
up?
okay now? Is it okay? Has it come on screen?
Yeah.
Is it there?
Yeah, but this is. This... No,
Yeah. Can you see this slide? Let me just check.
Okay, go on, Pushkar. There is a slide on screen. Please go on.
There is a slide, right? So I will just quickly talk about the approach to formulate and deploy these best practices. So is there a template which is available? Is there a framework which is available? And what I am going to share with you, I think this is something which we had adopted pre-COVID days. We had these 5 Ds of security, and I think everybody here is a security expert. So I need not talk about the deter, detect, deny, delay, defend kind of approach, and what kind of components actually are a part of this premises security approach. But what I think one needs to look at is post-COVID, what has really happened. It has really changed. I think Captain Saab also spoke about how does one navigate through the post-COVID era. I think it is completely different than what it was in the pre-COVID era. So in the post-COVID era, I think the 5D security has to be superimposed on the 3S approach. The 3S approach which we are talking about today is scanning for temperature and mask. Second is sanitization, and third is social distancing. And that's where I think it's a combination of 5D and 3S. 5D security and 3S which needs to really come in. And I'll just share with you quickly a roadmap. We actually, I actually want to tell and just suggest to the entire audience over here that they can look at a very structured approach to come up with this kind of solution. And any organization, any premises which is there, I think one is form activity clusters. Second is detailed activity map to be prepared. The third is, of course, one needs to identify threat and identify the risks which are involved in each of these activities. And then you capture the need of every stakeholder who's engaged into that particular activity. And post that only can one really look at a holistic solution. I think everybody here in the audience has visited a bank branch. So I want to quickly take you through a use case which we have done to share with you as to what is the kind of framework, what kind of template which one can adopt to formulate the best practices. So here you can see it very clearly. There is a template which we are creating as to basically formulate what is the kind of walk-in customers, because every time I'm sure you also would have used a banking service, and today it is one of the emergency services. So everybody has been going to a bank branch. So what is the type of service, then sequence of activities which are engaged in that particular cluster, threat, risk, need, and then we come up with a solution. I'll just give you a quick example. I had actually shared here that what is the difference, because many a times we use the term threat and risk interchangeably. That should not happen. So I'll just share with you one slide which talks about a cluster of activities. So I think everybody has done that, a new account opening, new gold loan, or account services. So what are the various sequences which one actually goes through when a customer walks in? What is the various activities he's performing? So right from entry into the bank branch to inquiring with the customer assistants, meeting the dedicated employee of whatever service he's gone there for. Maybe it could be a KYC, form filling, acknowledgement, receipt, and then of course the exit. What one should do is identify the threat at each and every activity. And then we talk about the risk which is involved, and then what could be the need. So for example, here it is one important risk in a bank branch is the risk of burglary. Loss of valuables is the risk. And then of course the need is that one needs to have an authorized entry, one needs to have a proper security. And then if you talk about the other aspect today, which is actually what I was talking about, superimposing the health security thing onto the 5D security, is the person, if at all the person entering in the bank branch is COVID positive, then what happens? So how does one really ensure that a person who's positive does not get in? So one needs to have a particular solution. So this is the way, we have actually made a complete framework, mapped each and every sequence of activity, threat, risk, and then identified the need of the stakeholder and then come up with a solution. The same thing has been done for each cluster, cash withdrawal, what is exactly involved, what kind of work is involved, what kind of activities are involved over there. Storage and retrieval of valuables, one goes to the safe deposit locker. I think all of you would be using a safe deposit locker.
Right, yes.
So
Pushkar, request you to please conclude.
Yeah. So I will just, this is the framework which I thought will be of use to each and every security individual who's there. That's what I wanted to communicate. Of course, for paucity of time, I'm just rushing through this particular thing. But one more thing which one needs to do is going beyond the activity mapping and risk and need mapping. One needs to look at doing a proper survey, proper feedback needs to be taken. So this is something which we conducted. What is the need to sanitize cash? So this is the survey which we conducted of the stakeholders. And then we actually came up with a complete analysis as to what needs to be done. And out of that, there are various questions which we asked, pointed questions were asked to more than 100 banking people who are actually currently exposed to the COVID pandemic. And then this is actually the outcome. So whatever we have done in terms of the activity mapping, in terms of risk and need mapping, we have then come up with the solution. Same way we have come up with another solution based on the feedback which we have got from each customer. So this is what I wanted to share with all of you. I think sorry, but I think the time was really limited, so I had to really rush.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Pushkar. It was really interesting. We could not speak to Jitendra, and Khyati is already here alarming us that the time is over. But Khyati, one more minute I would like to have. If Jitendra can wrap up in 1.5 minutes, please. I mean, quickly, if we can hear you, your experiences at the healthcare. No, I think the healthcare sector is too tired to speak. Thank you very much, Rekha and my other friends and colleagues here. It was very interesting, and my sincere apologies that we could have gone for maybe 1 or 1.5 hours more. It was so interesting going on, and I already have a list of questions I'm sure the audience would have. But in case the audience have, Khyati, can we have them from there and perhaps write to these panelists and revert back to them? Thank you so much once again.
Absolutely, we'll do that.
Thank you.